If you use the internet on a daily basis, and chances are you do, you probably don't put much thought into cybersecurity. You know, your network connections, the pages you visit, the files you download. You should be thinking about these all the time. Welcome to And Security for All. Your host is Kim Hakim. We're here to help you understand, in general terms, how and why your cybersecurity should be kept in check. Now, here is Kim Hakim.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of And Security for All. I'm Kim Hakim, your host. Very happy to be here today. It's a sunny Midwest day, beautiful fall day. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great Friday. Hopefully you're not stuck waiting in an airport somewhere, which I can tell you. I just came back from Atlanta and it was smooth sailing all the way home. So I wish all the best for all my friends that are out there traveling. But with that being said, we had our Atlanta Cybersecurity Conference this week, and as norm, it was a packed event, one of my favorite events around the country. We do about 30 different of these events. We're heading out to Phoenix next week, and I have to say that's another one of my favorites. Then we head to Boston, Austin, and Nashville, and then we wrap up 2026, which is kind of crazy. The year has flown by. And that's what I want to kind of talk about today is some of the things that we're seeing in the industry year to date in 2026 as we continue to talk about the workforce and AI. And I have one of my good friends and cybersecurity experts in the industry from Atlanta. He sat on our panel. I have Ken Foster. Hey, Ken, how are you doing today?
How you doing? Good to see you. Great event in Atlanta as always. It was a really great turnout, great conversation. It was super cool to see as many people stuck around as long as they did that day, and all the way through the final closing panels, we still had great interaction and just a good discussion. So it's really good to see the crowd excited and getting out to have these conversations.
Yeah, it's really nice, because, as you know, we run this in a hybrid mode and we still had about 200 people virtual, but we had about 200 people on site. And it's just nice to know. I don't think the cybersecurity community is going anywhere because we all have to stick together with everything, with all the changes in the industry. And it's been quite the year, 2025. And who knows what's in store for 2026. I feel like you cybersecurity practitioners always get the gift that keeps giving during the holidays, and sometimes they're not that fun for you.
Yeah, and I think that's one good thing that everybody's got to be aware of, right? We're coming up to that time of the year. It's not only is it the consumerism at its best, I guess is the way to put it, but it's also an opportunity for the bad guys to take advantage of the holiday distraction, I guess is the best way to put it. Because, staffs are going to be short, people are going to be on vacation, people are not thinking. And then just in general, the public, they've got their family get-togethers online, they're shopping online, and, it's they may not, we got annual enrollment starting for most companies in the U.S. this time of the year. So it's a prime opportunity for the threat actors to use their newfound tool set that they've been really ramping up this year to the AI side of the house, to where it's making the attacks easier and faster and cheaper for them. So I think what we're going to see is just this: people have got to be paying attention, and I think that's the biggest thing. You got to warn people and go, hey, if it doesn't seem right, slow down just a little bit, take a little extra look at it and go, hey, maybe this isn't what it seems. And, it's with everything going on in the world and economies and all that and the job market, you need to be a little extra diligent right now and pay extra attention is the best thing I can say right now.
Well, I definitely agree. And, we're seeing, big companies have massive layoffs. And let's kind of talk about Amazon, for example, with their massive layoff they did. How do you think that's going to affect, like, can you kind of, I don't really know what part, like, I don't recall how many they laid off, but it was a massive
It was like
amount.
4,800, I think, or something like that.
What part of Amazon did that come from? Do you know?
I didn't read that deep into it, but the big headline out of that is like it was a cultural layoff, basically, for culture reasons. I think it was across the board, but because it's funny too, because this is the time of the year normally, like Amazon, UPS, those companies ramp up their seasonal hiring, and are bringing on staff to deliver and move through the warehouse and stuff. So I can't imagine that's where most of it happened. I think it's probably more on back end stuff and probably salespeople, stuff like that, maybe is where it happened. But I haven't read enough into it to know. That one's the one that hit the headlines because it's big, but I think there's been so many other layoffs and a lot of companies this time of the year are, unfortunately in the industry, you've seen over the years that this is the time of year when a lot of companies do a layoff, especially in their contractors and stuff like that. I'm hearing through the grapevine, talking to people that I know in the industry and different industries, that there's a lot of companies that are hoping that after the holiday season that economy is going to be a little stabler and we're going to see some hiring picking up in the beginning of the year. But I do think that that's one thing people have got to be aware of. And since, 2025 seems to be the year of AI, agentic AI anyway, or large language models, right, is that people are going to need to upskill themselves and be prepared for what that new job requirement's going to be. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take away all the roles out there, but it is going to change the skill sets that you need to go into these jobs. So I think as we look how some of our security operations goes, how some of our tooling is being used, and how the need to make faster decisions and the need to use AI to make those decisions quicker and take actions quicker. I think we really need to focus on upskilling our people and upskilling ourselves.
I was speaking with somebody that was at the Atlanta event, and I think she was like over from like the Discover, or I think Capital One, because I guess when Capital One, was it Capital One that bought Discover? And she was, I think, more on the compliance side. And we were talking about it, that AI was taking a lot of people's jobs, but it's not going to be until someone gets hit really hard that they're going to understand that we do need the human side of compliance. And what's your thoughts on that? Like,
Yeah,
it was
I think
interesting. Yeah.
this is an interesting thing, and funny this week. Besides the Atlanta, because I did talk to several people at the Atlanta event, but I also had a couple other things I was at talking with some other CISOs and security leaders, and we're talking. The fear is we're killing our pipeline of talent. So I think AI is going to definitely replace some of the entry level roles that are kind of repetitive tasks, evidence collection, data gathering, doing some analytics on the data, presenting a report, stuff like that. That stuff definitely AI is going to replace that. It's inevitable, right? We've all been trying to do it for a while anyway, with different types of automation and the tool sets that are out on the market, right? Where we're getting out of the point in time process of data and evidence collection from a governance standpoint, right? We need to move to more real time. Even the pen testing is getting automated. I mean, if you look out there at some of the companies who offer pen testing services, and you look at who their number one pen tester is, it's an AI agent. It's not a human. But what we need are humans who can look at the output and the data that's coming out of those AI tools and validate it. So we need people with experience and understanding business processes, understanding the data and what the outcome that we were trying to accomplish. We need those people to know that. Well, the problem is, if we're replacing the jobs that they grew up to learn those skills, how are we going to keep a continuous talent pipeline coming in and get them still to have the knowledge to validate what the output of our AI tools are giving us? And that's a concern that I think I've like I said, I've had several conversations with other CISOs and senior leaders, and that's all a concern that seems to be coming out. That's not really being talked about a ton, is that we may be hurting ourselves by not having a plan in place to get that talent trained on what it needs to be doing in the future as the role changes. Like I said, I don't think it's going to eliminate all jobs. I think it's going to change the way the jobs descriptions are and what we need the people doing. Again, it's like automation. You want to be automated to a point, but at a certain point, you kind of want humans in the loop until you have a trust built and that you know your data quality, your data governance programs, your data quality, your tagging, all of that is figured out to the point where you can actually trust AI to give the correct response. And that's a concern.
So for 2025, what do you think have been some of your biggest challenges that you've seen with AI year to date? And then after we kind of talk about that, let's talk about some of the positive things you've seen, because I think there is good and bad on both sides.
Yeah, there's good and bad, right? I think the bad things we've seen is the lack of understanding of putting sensitive data into a public model. Now, I've made the argument, and I still stick by this, that if you are already in an environment where you should have never had the ability to move massive amounts of data into a public storage location, whether that be email, AI, SharePoint, web storage, you have another control failure if people are uploading massive amounts of sensitive data. But it's impossible to stop is if they have access to a public AI model and they're typing data in, or they're doing it at home. And this is the thing I think most people are not thinking about. Well, we block AI at the office and they can't upload data. Well, they still are intelligent about their job. They can still sit down and type in all that information that they're trying to get an answer to make themselves more efficient. They're not doing it maliciously. They're just trying to do their job faster, right? So let's say there's M&A that somebody's involved in. They start doing some queries in AI about M&A processes, and they've been using the AI model enough, and maybe have thrown in their company name here or there, or they've thrown in their job. They're using it to crawl their LinkedIn profile, things like that. It's smart enough to put all that data together, right? So if somebody can start searching and knows how to use the tool and search the tool correctly with the right prompts, they're going to be able to start maybe figuring out, hey, these companies look like they're probably getting ready to do an M&A activity, or this company's getting ready to sell off, or this company's getting ready to release a new product, right? So I think there's that piece of, we think we have security because we've blocked it at the company level, but we haven't blocked our people from doing it. And I've seen some use cases of developers using AI at home to do development and then shipping that code back into their job. So if you're not able to stop that or not paying attention to that, you may be getting poorly written code that's coming from outside your company into your product team. You got to watch for that kind of stuff. I think the bigger other bad things is the bad guys are better and faster at it than we are. They have more time to focus on it because they don't have to keep the lights on, right? They don't have to worry about all their other things. They don't have a budget to worry about necessarily. They get to play with it a lot more and kind of spray and pray a little bit. So they're hitting a lot of companies, and they only got to get lucky, right? They don't have to be necessarily focused. And again, you don't have to be super sophisticated with the AI to get into a company. It's made the phishing attacks easier and cleaner. It's made them look more realistic. Granted, we all hear about the deep fakes, which have happened, right? But it's those things are now so much easier. I think right now it takes 27 words of you online speaking, like this podcast right now of me and you talking. Anybody that wants to spend a little bit of effort can jump online and create a deep fake of us very quickly. Because, like I said, I think right now they say it only takes 27 words and they've got you, your language, your pattern, and everything down. And I think there's some other emerging threats out there. I mean, I met with a new technology company that were talking about proximity attack surfaces, where people are using these cheap devices that you can buy off of AliExpress or even Amazon, like flippers and other wireless devices and cameras and AI recording devices that are the size of a credit card that nobody will ever see, that they may be taking in and just stealing privacy data, or they may just be getting information about your sales team or the way you're going to go to market with something. So the kind of privacy and I would call it almost corporate espionage part of it is a little bit concerning as well, right? Because there's that kind of stuff that AI is making happen very, very fast. And then there's the regulatory changes that the government, and this is a weird, kind of a weird situation where in a lot of cases, the government and the laws are moving faster than corporate America are on the impact and the risk that you're opening the company up by using AI. And are you adhering to all of the global privacy issues and AI issues and frameworks that are coming or laws that are coming across the country? And are you in violation of those without knowing it?
You know, this just kind of made me think about this point that I haven't even thought about until I'm talking to you now is, in all the social media that's out there and all the non-cyber practitioners that, you see it. Well, I don't know how much you're on social media, but probably not as much as, well, you have kids, so you probably are because you see it around. But, just say, for instance, on TikTok, every other TikTok, once you click on one, the algorithm's gonna, if you click on one thing about AI, the algorithms, you're gonna get so many other ones, talking about AI. But now you have all these little clips that are like, if you don't know how to use AI, click here and we'll teach you how to use it. What impact? Because now we have humans trying to use AI, which they are because it's the cool, new, latest thing to do. Isn't that going to be eventually a big problem because somebody's probably going to learn the wrong
Oh,
AI?
it's definitely that. That's the point I was getting at earlier is the output of AI. It's like the internet, right? The internet's full of wonderful and great information. The internet's also a horrible place full of bad misinformation. Well, public AI models are looking at the internet. So when you think about data and the way an AI model learns, right? The data, the higher the volume of data and the more that data is accessed and looked at, the more that raises that to the top. So if it's misinformation in a public model, then people are going to take that as gospel, right? And that's the old saying, you can't believe everything you read, right? And the problem is, I think that is AI is doing that, right? People are not spending enough effort researching and validating that the data and the answer they got is correct. Now, is it an amazing research tool and search engine? Yes, but you still need to validate it, right? It's just like if you find Google search engines were the same way. If you know how to elevate your score high enough, you're on the first page, and most people never look past the first page to get a counter argument, right? Or a counter research. So you've got to make sure that you validate the data that you're getting out of these out of these large language models. And that's the one thing I think that that's still a huge risk. It's going to continue to be a risk. Data poisoning or data steering is always going to be a concern. The bias that's in your data, you better understand that. And this goes back to why companies better be hyper focused on data governance and a good data security and data governance program going forward. And data quality is part of that. Good data management, right? Understanding what the outcome is that you actually want, and that the data you have supports that by what are the biases in the data? What are the things that it could possibly get wrong? What does it have access to? What shouldn't it have access to? I don't necessarily want my internal AI engine to have PII data. I want it to have anonymized data. I want to use it for a sales demographic tool or helping me enable my sales team better or help enable my feature set in my product. But I do need to make sure that I'm not putting sensitive data into it to get that outcome. So How do I clean the data? How do I make sure it only has access to the data it should have access to? How do I make sure that I have it segmented from production or sensitive data it should never have access to? And as you start looking at things like the MCP servers and connecting itself to AI or APIs and using its identity, what's going to stop it from going, oh, well, I have access to this, but I don't have privilege yet. And if your access controls and entitlements are not correct, the AI will be able to elevate its privilege and then get access to something it shouldn't have access to. So you got to think through this as an overarching data strategy, because ultimately the tool AI is going to use the data you have to get to the outcomes you want. And if you don't have the appropriate security strategy and governance around that data and it clean and ready to go, you're going to get bad outcomes. You're going to get incorrect answers. You're going to get biased data. And that's one thing that I think concerns me, the way that a lot of companies they've got the big four, they got everybody in the news, they got all their friends telling them, if you're not using AI, you're behind and your company's going to go under if you're not using AI. Well, if you're using AI incorrectly, it's going to go under faster. Right?
So what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that's really true? Do you think if they're not using AI, and I think that's the point. That's what we see, like these little commercials, if you're not using AI, you're old news, and it makes me nervous.
I think you have to be using it. I do. I think in today's age, and just like let's go back to cybersecurity. We have to be using AI to fight AI because we can't move as fast as AI can. Right. So and it's going to change our relationships with like our managed security providers. Think about it like this. The average time today for an attack is 48 minutes for them to come in, steal data and exfiltrate. The average is 48 minutes. So that means half of them are less than 48 minutes. Well, if you're using an outsourced SOC, that they alert your team to do things, it takes them 30 minutes to alert your team, and then you got to do investigation. Data's already gone, right? You've already lost. So you need to be able to move at a much faster pace, and the only way to do that is to fight AI with AI, right? And that is the unfortunate truth of this. So I think you've got to be using it. The companies need to be using it because they need to be understanding data faster and providing services quicker. They need better insights. But again, you need to have a process that allows you to use these tools appropriately. And some of this is going to require people to rethink their processes, to rethink how they generate revenue, to rethink how we run an incident response program, how we do GRC, right? We need to be able to move at a more near real-time pace. So we've got to get out of point-in-time assessments. We need to move to more continuous assessment, continuous monitoring, continuous pen testing, because we need to be able to see that rate of change as it's happening and be able to react to it as fast as the change is happening. It's great if we're deploying if we're making a deployment 8 times a day to our production platform. Great. What is the risk change over that time? What changes in the environment from a configuration standpoint, from a security control standpoint, is that keeping up with it? Can we tell from those 8 deployments a day if something went in bad, and how fast can we roll it back? We're going to need these tools to be able to help us do that.
So from the onset of AI, what's it been now, a couple of years, like when?
Well, I mean, technically it's been around since the 50s, but I mean, the agentic AI has really taken off in the last 5 years.
So what are some of the trends that you're seeing of AI replacing human jobs? What do you think are some of the biggest things you've seen?
Well, like I said, I think some of those repetitive today that we sit down and ask people questions about how something's configured. We ask people how our firewalls are configured, for example, or what is the process that is out there? How does the data flow through something? I think those kind of jobs, some of that basic analytical work is especially, I think the GRC world's going to get hit pretty heavy by it. Right. I do think in our industry that's going to change. I think some of the business development stuff, some of the sales roles, entry level sales roles where they're some of the entry level financial roles, contract writing, contract review. There's some legal jobs that are going to be essentially, I think, kind of that paralegal type role for research and stuff like that. A lot of those kind of jobs, I think, are right to be replaced by AI.
Yeah, and I, just for an example, I was just using a tool that was like on the profession, because you get some of the free tools and then you can pay for the tools, and there is a tool that definitely did exactly what I would hire an intern to do a year ago, and much faster in 5 minutes. I could have something that would take someone a month, but you have to go through that stuff because there's mistakes in there, and that's the problem.
The other thing that I think we're going to see, so as you look at the startup world today in cyber, and I'm going to stay in the cyberspace, right, specifically, when you're looking at a lot of these companies coming out going, well, we've developed a tool using AI to do X. And that tool it goes and scours your hypervisor tenant. It looks at all the data, comes back and gives you an analytics on where all this data lives, what type of data it is. So kind of that DSPM space to an extent, data security management or posture management space. You can do that yourself if you have a talented person inside who knows how to write your model and write your prompts to go out and scour your environment and find that sensitive data. You may not need to buy a product to do that, right? So I think it's going to change the way to the build or buy conversation is, I think, getting ready to become a very active discussion again. Is if you're at a certain size company with talented development teams who understand AI and modeling and how to write this stuff, you may not need to go buy another tool. You may be able just to use whatever a AI tool you're using in your enterprise. You may be able to write this stuff yourself. So you may not be buying a product to do this, but you may need to now hire people who understand how to write the prompts, how to do that. So you're going to need people who are talented with understanding security controls, understanding what the outcomes are. They need to be able to help the developers build that model and understand what the right questions and what the outcomes you're trying to get out of it. So I think we're going to see a shift in the industry on, some of these larger companies that go, I don't need to buy a tool. We're just going to build it ourselves because we already have our own AI model. We already have our own people who are developing in this. We have our own data scientists. Do I need to go spend a couple $100,000 a year for a tool that I can have them write in a quarter?
Yeah, I just had a conversation with one of our vendors that, we were able to luckily enough get something built internally that was able to release us from a contract. And they were like, well, it was a SaaS product, and they were like, well, who are you going to use now? And I'm like, we're no one, we have our own, so, and that's,
I was going to say, and there's another interesting conversation I had today. And I was talking with a group of people about the job market. And it was a mix of senior level hiring managers and recruiters and HR folks. And one of the ladies said she took an interview that was 100% an AI bot she was talking to for an interview.
Wow.
So it was creepy.
Yeah, that's
but there are people out there who are looking at, like, how do we replace frontline, first line recruiters in an HR team and use an AI bot to do that instead? Right? They're already kind of been doing it for a while with resume reviews and stuff like that, right? And now you got to have your resume in a format that a scanner and an AI tool can review, or you may get kicked out before you ever even get an opportunity. And, but on the other flip side of that is most company, and this was something most of the HR teams were talking about, and even some of the hiring managers, you post a job right now and you get inundated with thousands of resumes. And most of them have been generated using AI or applied to by AI. I mean, you can go buy a service for like $30 that will take your resume, get it written up, and apply to jobs for you on anything that comes within your criteria. It'll just go out there and hammer all these job sites with it. So, it's a double-edged sword. I think it's going to make us much more efficient, and we're going to be able to accomplish a lot more. And as it gets better and faster, and then there's the whole quantum computing as it becomes more available. We're going to see AI, like I said, been around since the 50s, kind of stayed steady. Last 5 years, we've started seeing a drastic uptick. I mean, when quantum hits, we're going to see this near vertical, I think, hockey stick move in the adoption and use of AI.
Well, explain to my listeners a little bit more about quantum computing, and for those that don't know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably spend the entire day on that.
I
I mean,
know.
it's essentially and if you guys haven't looked at the quantum computing, right, it's a way of processing that is much faster, much more efficient. It's call it 4D chess when we've been playing 3D chess, I guess, is probably the easiest way to explain it. Like I said, don't want to get too far down on the technical side of that, but it's just going to be much faster processing, faster than anything we've ever seen. So let's just say right now, if you're dependent on encryption to protect your stuff and haven't already been working on getting quantum resistant encryption in, you're behind. You need to get moving forward, because when quantum computing gets affordable for mainstream, there are no current encryption algorithms that were not put into the quantum resistant that it can't break in a very, very short period of time, because it just can compute. Its computational powers are so much higher than what we can do today. So it's going to be able to process stuff so much faster. I do think AI and quantum both bring up a unique thing right now. Is there's a concern, and I haven't heard it talked about a whole lot in the cybersecurity community, but I have heard about it talked into the CIO side of the house a little bit, and people who run data centers. We have an actual concern about power consumption and the ability to produce enough power and have data centers that can keep cool enough and run long enough for these things to actually work. Right, because we're putting a strain on our current infrastructure with the power and the heat that we're generating, the power usage and the heat we're generating right now in today's world. As this technology and chip densities and faster moves forward, we're running into issues with power generation.
Another kind of shifting gears, just a little bit, because we don't have a lot of time left. But I just, when I am running these events and I'm seeing these speakers, I'm in the room listening to our keynote speaker and then 8 additional speakers and then our panelists. And right now, obviously, the theme right now seems to be AI. A few years ago, when you look up a vendor and you see what they do, they have to have AI attached to them somehow. A few years ago, it used to be zero trust. I feel like I'm never hearing anyone talk about zero trust anymore, but what is your...
I think they kind of go hand in hand, right? And I did talk about that a little bit on the panel the other day, and I actually had some conversations about it. Is, like I said, AI is great, but ultimately it's a data security and a access and entitlement and documentation problem for securing AI. Well, guess what all those things are part of? The term that zero trust got built around: segmentation, network segmentation, encryption, access controls, entitlement, documentation, right? Those are the things, the tenets of zero trust. So, and I'm a firm believer that a lot of our issues that we deal with today could very much be mitigated and minimized if you have proper segmentation of your environments, where the production environment is sacrosanct, that nobody can actually access it without jumping through multiple hoops. And that includes all of your access controls and your entitlement controls, which is MFA and strong passwords, or I don't even care if you go passwordless, whatever you want to talk about, but you got to have access. Only people who need to have access should have access. They shouldn't have standing access. They should only have access to it when they need to do it. It should be a logged session that they log in, do what they do, they get out of it, and it goes, that session goes away. End user laptops should never have direct access to the production network. All the data should be encrypted, right? We should be using encryption resistant technology, or we should be using ransomware resistant technology. We should be using quantum resistant encryption, right? There's technologies out there that you can buy now that are coming up, a few startups that are out there that they lock the kernel of your servers to keep any changes from being able to be made. So if a ransomware hit, or even because it got brought up in the panel, right, when we were talking about, somebody said, well, how do you prevent against CrowdStrike? The problem that CrowdStrike was where they made a change to the kernel and it took down the system. Well, if you have a tool that protects the kernel without that change being authorized, then that would have slowed it down enough maybe to have figured, it wouldn't have stopped it, but it would have slowed it down enough to allow people time to maybe not take their systems offline while they were fixing it, right? It would have kept the systems operational. So you've really got to start looking at the startup world out there and the communities that are coming up, and they're thinking about problems that we failed at over the years. Better ways of doing identity and access control, better segmentation of the networks, better just-in-time access to production, right? And some of this is more of a cultural change for companies and people than it is for the technology. Technology exists, right? You can do all this with the technology. The problem is you got to get people to understand they don't always need God-level access to everything to do their job. They only need access to the stuff that allows them to do their job efficiently. And then companies also need to be smarter about the way they write software, that it doesn't require administrative level access. I think Microsoft just announced that they're rolling something out in Windows 11 where it won't even allow local admin accounts anymore. Right. So, that's where we're dependent on the technology companies that we're working with to take these problems that we failed at solving over the years and come in and solve them. And they're spending the money in the research. We on our side, as the practitioners, need to be spending time at places like FutureCon and in these conferences and having a real conversation about, these are the problems I'm dealing with, and nothing in my tool bag today has been able to solve this problem for me easily. Whether it's AI, whether it's people, whether it's a piece of technology, we need to be sharing this information in a way that allows them to say, hey, your tool does great at this, but it's not helping me here. How do we address that? Right? And you need to be talking to your business leaders, and you need to be talking to your boards. You need to be having these conversations going, we do okay at these things, but these things we're missing on, and they're causing a great amount of risk to us. This is what it's going to take to fix it. And then tech debt. Tech debt is not just technology; it's process too. It's process. It's I've found this years and years ago in something I was reading. I used to have it written on my whiteboard in my office, and it was my signature on my email. Was the most dangerous words in IT are "we've always done it this way." Well, that still holds true today. You have to have people who are willing to think about a problem, step back, be honest with themselves, and go, you know what? The way we do this is not good. It's broken. It needs to be improved. So the other thing is, AI is going to help us iterate and move faster. You also need to be iterating your processes and the way you do things and the way your people learn and the way they access stuff. You have to continually elevate everything, and it's got to be a living thing. It's never going to be a set and forget.
So kind of it's not really a fun topic because of the state of the world right now, but we see Waymos right now, and I haven't gotten in one yet, and I'm going to Phoenix next week, and I feel like they have so many Waymos out there.
They're everywhere. I was just in Phoenix last week too, right? So yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah.
So do you think we're going to start seeing airplanes that are going to be,
I don't
pilotless?
know. I think that's going to take a lot longer than
a Waymo.
I think that's going to take a lot longer than a Waymo.
And then on that note, do you think air traffic controllers are going to be replaced by AI?
I think there's an opportunity for that to improve the safety of and minimize the number of air traffic controllers. I don't think it will ever fully replace them, just like I don't think AI will ever fully replace the human element in a complete job process. I think there are pieces of it where you need to be able to get information quickly and be able to get that information presented quickly, and that there are certain inflection points where I may be trusted enough to allow it to make a decision, but there's going to be certain points where I never want it to make the decision. Right.
Agree.
I've said this in the past. I said the reason we've taught automation for the last 30 years I've been in IT and security. And a lot of times the reason we don't automate things is because none of us want to be the person in charge who automated a process that took down production and stopped revenue generation, right? Or heaven forbid, in an airline killed somebody or killed hundreds of people, right? So what you got to get to the point is do I trust this data and its decision making point enough to allow it to take somebody's life into their hands, or to take a business process that's generating the livelihood of my company and my people? Do I trust the AI enough to make that decision for me? And I don't think anybody can honestly say that they trust it to that point yet.
Which goes completely back to zero trust,
Yeah.
so, which is probably where we'll leave this topic today, because we could talk about this and who knows where we'll be a year from now. I mean,
yeah, I think we're still going to be having a lot of the same discussions a year from now. I just think the tools are going to mature. The discussion's going to mature. I think I've seen it in the last year go from a lot of FUD about, and for those who don't know what that is, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about what AI is going to do to us, to the fact that we realize it's a tool set that it still needs some of those basic cybersecurity hygiene controls, access control, segmentation, encryption, documentation of process. It needs those same things, and then there are risk of it making inappropriate decisions or bad decisions, or exposing data it shouldn't have had access to in the first place. So it went very different from that initial AI conversation. It was like all our IP is going to be in the world, to, okay, it's a tool set. Now let's figure out how to use the tool set to make us more efficient and to be able to move faster and at the velocity that the business wants us to move at.
Well, anyone out there, if you don't know Ken Foster, he is one of the most down-to-earth guys that will talk to anybody. So you can find him on LinkedIn. I don't want to flood your LinkedIn, but he's a great resource for anyone as a very expert CISO out there. So Ken, thanks again for being on the show last minute. Thanks for being in Atlanta. Always good to see you. And enjoy your holidays if I don't talk to you, but I will see you. I think RSA is like in February this year, I believe.
Yeah, and I should see you in Nashville. So yeah.
Oh, I'll see you in Nashville. I'll see you, right before Christmas. So I forgot. I still have that.
Yeah, but no,
at least both of us can drive to Nashville. If
both of us can drive to Nashville. That's right.
Yeah,
so I appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on, Kim. As always, I just enjoy talking about this subject, in general. But yeah, and anybody who wants to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me. It may take me a week or so to get back to you because my inbox stays pretty full on LinkedIn. But happy to have a conversation with anybody about this stuff.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Ken, so much. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Security for All. You can catch our shows. You can find them on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, anywhere where you listen to your podcasts. Everyone, have a fabulous weekend. Stay safe, stay secure, and we'll be back next week. And have a great day. Thanks, everyone.